My name is Diane Foster. I'm 48 years old. At 8:12 on a rainy Tuesday morning in October, I opened my mailbox and found a property tax notice for my grandmother's house addressed to me, not to my brother, not to my late grandmother's estate, me, Diane Marie Foster. The envelope was damp around the edges. The county seal smudged slightly from the rain, but my name was clear in the little plastic window. I stood under the porch light in my robe, holding a mug of coffee gone lukewarm, staring at an address I had not been allowed to enter for 3 months. 214 Maple Crest Road, Grandma's house. The yellow house with the white porch swing, the cracked bird bath, the kitchen window that stuck in July, and the pantry door, where she had marked all our heights in pencil until we were too old to pretend we did not care. The house my brother Brian had moved into 2 weeks after Grandma's funeral. The house he had locked everyone else out of. The house he claimed Grandma had basically given him because he was the only one who understood what she wanted. The house he had started calling mine before the grass over her grave had even settled. I turned the envelope over. Property tax assessment. Owner, Diane M. Foster. I read it once. Then again. Then I laughed. Not loudly, not happily. Just once, under my breath, with the kind of cold disbelief that comes when the universe finally hands you paper after months of being told you imagined the truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Funny timing. Can you stop telling Aunt Carol I need to give people keys? Grandma wanted me here. Everyone needs to move on. Move on. That was what he called it when he changed the locks. Move on. That was what he called it when he threw away Grandma's old sewing chair because it, quote, smelled like mothballs. Move on. That was what he called it when he hosted a football watch party in her living room, while my mother's framed wedding photo sat on the floor beside a trash bag. I looked again at the tax notice. Owner, Diane M. Foster. Then I looked at Brian's text. Grandma wanted me here. For 3 months he had said that sentence like scripture. Grandma wanted me here. Grandma said the house suited me. Grandma knew you had your own place. Grandma told me I should take care of it. Grandma wouldn't want lawyers involved. Grandma wouldn't want family fighting. But Grandma had involved a lawyer. Grandma had transferred the deed. Grandma had updated the tax records. Grandma had left instructions in a file Brian had never bothered to open, because he assumed possession was ownership and volume was proof. And now the county had mailed the truth to my front porch. I went inside, placed the tax notice on my kitchen table, and took out the blue folder from the bottom drawer of my desk. Grandma's folder. The one her attorney had handed me 7 months before she died, after she asked me to drive her to an appointment and then insisted I come into the conference room. Brian did not know about that appointment. He did not know about the deed transfer. He did not know about the life estate Grandma had reserved, so she could live in the house until she passed. He did not know she had chosen me because I had been paying the property taxes, insurance, repairs, and utilities for 4 years after Brian borrowed against her account and disappeared when the furnace died. And he absolutely did not know that the locks he changed were on a house he did not own. I unfolded the tax notice. Then I texted Brian back, "We need to talk about the house." He replied immediately, "No, we don't. It's handled." I looked at the blue folder, the deed copy, the lawyer's letter, the tax notice, and the spare key Grandma had given me on a small ceramic keychain shaped like a cardinal. Then I wrote, "You're right, it is. This is that story." Before I tell you how my brother learned that sleeping in a bedroom does not make you the owner, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears stories like this, while remembering the moment someone confused family property with personal entitlement. And if you connect with stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, pushed aside, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not argue through locked doors. Some women wait for the tax notice. I grew up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in a family that treated houses like memory containers. Not investments, not assets, containers. My grandmother, Eleanor Foster, bought the yellow house on Maple Crest Road with my grandfather in 1971. He died before I was born, so to me, the house was always Grandma's. Yellow siding, black shutters, white porch rail, a maple tree in front that turned red so suddenly every October it looked like the yard had caught fire. Inside, the house smelled like lemon oil, cinnamon, coffee, and old paper. Grandma kept plastic covers on the good lampshades but never on the sofa because she said furniture was meant to hold people, not impress them. She baked molasses cookies every November. She kept sewing needles in a tomato-shaped pincushion. She watched Jeopardy every night and shouted answers with the confidence of a woman who had never needed a buzzer to be right. There were 3 grandchildren. Me, my brother Brian, 2 years younger, and our cousin Ellie, Aunt Carol's daughter, who lived 3 states away but came every summer. Our father, Maple Foster, was Grandma's only son. He died of a heart attack when I was 26. Our mother, Linda, had already divorced him by then, but stayed close to Grandma because Grandma believed divorce ended marriages, not family if people behaved decently. Brian was always Grandma's soft spot. He was charming as a boy, with big brown eyes and a crooked smile. He could break a vase and make you feel sorry for the vase being in his way. He struggled in school, not because he lacked intelligence, but because effort offended him. Teachers called him bright but unfocused. Mom called him sensitive. Grandma called him my little rascal. Even when he was too old for the word to be cute, I was the responsible one. That word again. Responsible. I got good grades, worked at 16, remembered birthdays, took Grandma to appointments when Dad was busy. Later, after Dad died, I became the person who knew where her medication list was, when the insurance premium was due, and which neighbor shoveled her walkway if the snow came before I could get there. Brian became the person who promised. Promised to mow the lawn, promised to fix the gutter, promised to pay Grandma back, promised he was turning things around, promised he just needed one more chance. Grandma loved promises because she loved Brian. I loved receipts because I knew him. The symbolic object in this story was a small ceramic cardinal keychain. Grandma bought it at a church craft fair for $2 when I was 16. She gave it to me with a spare key to her house after I started driving. "For emergencies," she said. "What kind?" "The kind where I lock myself out, or you need a cookie." I used that key for 32 years. I used it when she fell in the kitchen and could not get up. I used it to water her plants when she visited Aunt Carol. I used it to bring groceries when her arthritis got bad. I used it the night my father died, when Grandma called me at 1:17 in the morning and said, "Diane, I can't find my shoes," because grief had made her believe she needed to go somewhere to stop it. I used it after her cataract surgery, after her pneumonia, after her car was finally taken away, after the furnace died, after Brian borrowed money and forgot what repayment meant. That key was not ownership, it was trust. Brian never understood the difference. He moved in and out of trouble the way some people move through weather, a bad business idea, a failed landscaping partnership, credit card debt, a girlfriend with a lease he forgot he co-signed, a truck repossession, a tax issue, a storage unit filled with furniture he insisted would be worth something someday. Grandma rescued him more often than she admitted. Not huge amounts at first. $200, $500, then $1,000. Then her credit card for just a week. Then her checking account linked to one of his payment apps because he said he needed help receiving money from a client. I found out about that part by accident. 4 years before Grandma died, she called me because her electric bill had bounced. Grandma had never bounced a bill in her life. I drove over with my laptop, sat at her kitchen table, and pulled up her bank account. There were withdrawals I did not recognize. $340, $600, $125, $980, transfer to B. Foster, payment app withdrawal, gas station, online sports store. I looked at Grandma, her face crumpled. He said he'd put it back. My hands went cold. How long? She looked at her lap. Just a little while. How long, Grandma? She whispered. Since March. It was August. I called Brian from her kitchen. He did not answer. I texted him. Call me now. He called 5 minutes later, annoyed. What? I said, why are you taking money from Grandma's account? Silence. Then, she offered. She is 83. She knows what she's doing. Her electric bill bounced. He exhaled. I told her I'd fix it. You caused it. Diane, don't start. That was his phrase when facts became inconvenient. Don't start. I said, you will disconnect whatever access you have today. He laughed. You're not in charge. No, but I can make calls. That got his attention. He disconnected the account after Grandma cried and asked me not to. Make it official. He paid back some of it. Not all. Never all. After that, I took over Grandma's bills with her permission. We met with her bank. We changed passwords. We set up automatic payments. I helped her freeze one card and open a new one. I began paying several expenses myself because Grandma's fixed income had less room after Brian's borrowing and rising costs. Property taxes 1 year. Homeowner's insurance the next. Furnace repair. Roof patch. Plumbing emergency. Tree trimming after a storm. Every time Grandma said, I'll pay you back. Every time I said, we'll talk later. We rarely did. Because she was proud. And I loved her. Brian knew enough to resent my involvement, but not enough to help. He would stop by with takeout and charm. He would kiss Grandma's cheek, call her Ellie, though no one else did, and say, you know I'd do anything for you. Then he would ask if she had cash for gas. When I confronted him, he said, at least I visit without acting like her accountant. That hurt. Because part of me feared it was true. I was the one with folders, bills, appointment cards, medication lists, and insurance forms. I was the one who noticed peeling paint, late payments, and suspicious withdrawals. Brian brought jokes. I brought paperwork. But paperwork kept the lights on. In the final 2 years of her life, Grandma declined physically but stayed sharp mentally. Her knees weakened. Her hands shook. Her heart condition worsened. She needed a walker, then a stair lift, then help bathing. But her mind remained clear in the ways that mattered. She knew who showed up. She knew who took. She knew who helped. One afternoon, 7 months before she died, she called me and said, I need you to drive me to Mr. Langford's office. Mr. Langford was her attorney. My stomach tightened. Is everything okay? Yes. What's it about? My house. I asked if she wanted Brian there. She said no so quickly I did not ask again. At the attorney's office, Grandma wore her navy coat and the pearl earrings Grandpa had given her. She sat very straight in the chair across from Mr. Langford, who was in his 70s and had represented half our family through wills, deeds, and arguments no one wanted to admit were arguments. He had a file ready. Grandma looked at me. Diane, I want the house transferred to you. I stared at her. No. She smiled faintly. I knew you'd say that first. Grandma, no, that's too much. It is my house. I know, but Brian has taken enough. The sentence sat in the room, heavy. Clean. I looked at Mr. Langford. He remained quiet. Grandma continued, you paid the taxes. I helped. You paid the insurance. Sometimes. You fixed the furnace. You needed heat. You kept me here. My throat tightened. She touched my hand. Your brother loves this house because he thinks it will save him. You love this house because it saved all of us at one time or another. I could not speak. Mr. Langford explained the arrangement. Grandma wanted to transfer the deed to me while retaining a life estate, meaning she would live there for the rest of her life with full rights to occupy the home. Upon her death, the property would already be in my name, avoiding probate disputes. The tax records would update. The file would contain her written statement explaining why. What about Aunt Carol? I asked. Carol knows, Grandma said. I blinked. She does. She said it's right. What about Ellie? Ellie said she wants my recipe box, not a house in Pennsylvania. Despite myself, I smiled. What about Brian? Grandma looked toward the window. I will not tell him before I die. Grandma, he will try to love me out of it. That sentence broke my heart, because she knew. She knew his love came with pressure. She signed the documents with a hand that trembled but did not hesitate. I signed where needed. Mr. Langford notarized. He gave me copies in a blue folder and said, keep this somewhere safe. The deed will be recorded. The county records may take time, but this is valid. Grandma handed me the cardinal keychain that day, though I already had it. This house is yours to protect now, she said. I cried in the car before driving her home. She patted my arm. Don't cry, it's just siding and plumbing. No, it isn't. She smiled. No, it isn't. Brian did not know. For the next 7 months, everything continued outwardly the same. Grandma lived in her house, I paid bills. Aunt Carol called weekly. Ellie visited once in the summer. Brian came and went, mostly when he needed laundry, food, or reassurance that he was still Grandma's favorite rascal. Then Grandma died in late July. She passed in her sleep after a week of decline, at home in the yellow house, with me in the recliner beside her and Aunt Carol, on speaker, praying softly from North Carolina. Brian had been called. He said he was on his way. He arrived 40 minutes after she died, out of breath and red-eyed, carrying a gas station coffee. He fell beside her bed and sobbed like a child. I believed his grief. That is the complicated part. Brian loved Grandma. He also took from her. Those things can both be true. The funeral was small and beautiful. Yellow roses. Church choir. Pastor speaking about hospitality. Aunt Carol reading a poem. Ellie crying into a tissue. Brian giving a speech about how Grandma had always believed in him. I did not speak because if I had tried, I would have broken. 2 weeks later, Brian moved into the house. Not asked, moved. I found out when Aunt Carol called. Diane, is Brian staying at Mom's? I was at work. What? Ellie drove by to pick up the recipe box and saw his truck there. He said he's living there now. I closed my eyes. I'll call him. Brian answered cheerfully. Hey, sis. Are you living in Grandma's house? Just for now. What does that mean? It means I'm keeping an eye on the place. You have an apartment. Lease ended. When? Last month. You didn't mention that. Didn't think I needed permission from the family committee. I took a breath. Brian, we need to discuss the house. No, we don't. Yes, we do. Grandma wanted me here. That was the first time he said it, not the last. I drove over after work. My key did not work. I stood on Grandma's porch, with the cardinal keychain in my hand, rain beginning to mist across the steps, while Brian opened the door from inside and looked annoyed. You changed the locks? Yeah, too many people have keys. I stared at him. Too many people? Old neighbors, church ladies, who knows? I'm securing the place. You locked me out. He leaned against the doorframe. Diane, you have your own house. That is not the point. It's kind of the point. Behind him, I could see boxes in the hallway, his boots on Grandma's rug, a pizza box on the coffee table. The photo of Grandpa that had always sat on the side table was gone. I felt something cold move through me. Let me in. He shook his head. Not tonight. I'm tired. Brian. No, you're not coming in here with your clipboard energy 2 weeks after Grandma died. Clipboard energy. I almost laughed. Give me a key. I'll make copies when things settle. They're settled enough for you to change locks. His face hardened. I'm grieving too. There it was, grief as shield. I looked at him. Grief does not make you the owner. He smiled sadly, condescendingly. You don't know everything Grandma and I talked about. I did not mention Mr. Langford. Not yet. Then we'll talk with the lawyer. His face changed. No lawyers. Why? Because Grandma wouldn't want that. I looked past him into the house. Grandma's house? My house? Legally, though, saying that then would have felt like striking a match in a room full of gas. I said, we will discuss this soon. He closed the door. In my face. For 3 months, Brian acted as if possession had settled the matter. He hosted friends. He parked his truck on the lawn once because the driveway was full. He ignored my calls about property maintenance. He told Aunt Carol the house was, quote, where Grandma wanted him to land. He told Ellie she could pick up the recipe box after he sorted things. He told neighbors I was being controlling because I handled Grandma's paperwork and got used to power. He threw away items without asking. That hurt most. The sewing chair. A stack of old magazines Grandma had saved. because one had Grandpa's letter to the editor, the chipped mixing bowl she used for Christmas cookies, the curtains from the back bedroom. He claimed they were junk. People who do not understand memory always start with junk. I called Mr. Langford. He advised patience at first. The deed is recorded, he said. The property is legally yours, but because he is family and currently occupying the home, we should proceed cleanly. Send written notice. Request access. Document refusal, then we escalate. I sent a formal letter. Brian ignored it. Mr. Langford sent one. Brian texted me. Seriously? A lawyer letter? Grandma would be ashamed, I replied. Grandma hired the lawyer. He did not answer. Then came the property tax notice. Owner, Diane M. Foster. The county had caught up. And Brian had run out of fog. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever watched someone take over a family home by speaking louder than the paperwork, you know exactly what that tax notice felt like. It was not just a bill. It was proof. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me what document finally told the truth in your family. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. I took the tax notice to Mr. Langford's office that afternoon. He read it, nodded once, and pulled Grandma's file from his cabinet. Inside was everything. Recorded deed transfer, life estate language, Grandma's signed statement, tax record update, receipts showing my payments for taxes, insurance, and major repairs, correspondence with Aunt Carol acknowledging the plan, a handwritten note from Grandma. Mr. Langford slid the note across the desk. Diane, if Brian is angry, let him be angry. A house is not a prize for needing rescue. It is a responsibility. You were responsible when no one was watching. Love. Grandma. I read it twice, then I cried, which annoyed me because I had already cried in that office once. Mr. Langford handed me a tissue. Your grandmother was very clear. Brian will say she was manipulated. He can say many things. The file is strong. What happens now? We send final notice to vacate or formalize occupancy under your terms. If he refuses, we pursue eviction. The word landed hard. Eviction. My brother. From Grandma's house. From my house. Is there another way? Yes, he said. He can cooperate. We both knew Brian. Mr. Langford sent a final notice. It stated that I was the legal owner of the property at 214 Maple Crest Road, that Brian had no ownership interest, that his occupancy was unauthorized, and that he must either vacate within 30 days or meet to discuss a written temporary occupancy agreement including rent, utilities, maintenance obligations, inspection access, and restrictions on alterations or disposal of property. Brian called me 6 minutes after receiving it. He was shouting before I said hello. You stole Grandma's house? I closed my office door. No. You manipulated an old woman. She was competent. You think because you paid a few bills you get everything? Grandma chose. She promised me that house. Did she? Silence. Then, lower, she said I'd always have a place there. That is not the same as ownership. You are unbelievable. I have the deed. You have paperwork. I have what she told me. Then bring it to Mr. Langford. He laughed bitterly. You'd love that. Yes, I said, I would. He hung up. Then the family calls began. Aunt Linda, from my father's side, who had not visited Grandma in 8 years, called to say family should not evict family. Cousin Mark texted that Brian was grieving and I should be compassionate. Aunt Carol called too, but she said, I told them all to read before speaking. I loved her for that. Ellie texted, Mom told me everything. Want me to fly up and help throw his stuff on the lawn? I replied, tempting, but no. Brian began posting on Facebook. Some people wait until you're grieving to show who they really are. Family homes should stay with the people who need them, not the people obsessed with paperwork. Grandma knew my heart. I took screenshots. Mr. Langford said, good. 2 weeks into the notice period, I drove by the house. The lawn was overgrown. The porch swing had been moved to the side yard. A broken grill sat near the back steps. 3 trash bags leaned against the garage. Grandma's lace curtains were gone from the front window, replaced by cheap blinds hanging crookedly. I sat in my car across the street and felt grief sharpen into anger. Then Mrs. Alvarez from next door came out with her mail. She saw me and walked over. Mrs. Alvarez was 76, sharp-eyed, and had known Grandma for 30 years. She leaned into my passenger window. "You finally come in to deal with him?" I almost laughed. "I'm trying." "He had a party last Saturday." My stomach tightened. "What kind?" "Loud kind. Beer cans and my hydrangeas kind." I closed my eyes. "Do you have pictures?" She smiled. "Diane, I am old, not useless." She had pictures. Beer cans. Cars on the grass. A man smoking on Grandma's porch. Brian carrying out the old roll-top desk from the den with another man. That desk had belonged to Grandpa. My voice went cold. "Did he sell the desk?" Mrs. Alvarez nodded. "Some fellow with a trailer paid cash." That was it. I called Mr. Langford from the car. He filed immediately. The court hearing was scheduled for November 10th. Brian ignored the filing until he realized ignoring court papers did not make them decorative. Then he showed up at my house the night before the hearing. I saw his truck through the front window. I did not open the door fully. I left the chain on. He looked terrible. Unshaven. Tired. Angry in a way that had begun eating him from the inside. "Diane," he said, "can we talk like family?" I looked through the gap. "Now?" "I didn't know about the deed." "I know. You should have told me." "Grandma chose not to tell you." "That was cruel." "Maybe, or maybe she knew you would pressure her." His jaw tightened. "I loved her." "I know." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because you changed the locks." He looked away. "You came at me with lawyer stuff." "After you locked me out." "I was trying to keep the house safe." "You sold Grandpa's desk." His face changed. So he had. "I needed money." "For what?" "Bills." "Your bills." He said nothing. I felt the old pull, my brother standing outside needing rescue again, Grandma's little rascal, Mom's sensitive son, the man who loved with one hand and took with the other. I said, "Brian, you need to leave the house." His eyes filled, which I had not expected. "I don't have anywhere." That sentence hurt. I did not want him homeless. I also did not want him destroying a house. Grandma trusted me to protect. I offered a temporary occupancy agreement. "You wanted rent." "Yes." "I can't pay rent." "Then you can't maintain a house." He looked at me like I had slapped him. "Grandma wouldn't say that." "Yes," I said quietly. "She did. In her own way." He wiped his face angrily. "You always think you're better than me." "No, Brian, I think I'm tired of paying for the difference." He stepped back. For a second, he looked like the boy who lost his backpack every September. Then he said, "I'll see you in court," and left. The hearing was not dramatic in the way family imagines court will be, no shouting. No surprise witness bursting through doors. Just a small courtroom, fluorescent lights, paperwork, and a judge who had clearly heard too many relatives say she wanted me to have it, without documentation. Brian represented himself. That worried me until he spoke. He told the judge Grandma had always promised him the house. He said he had been caring for it. He said I was trying to profit from family tragedy. He said paperwork did not tell the whole story. The judge listened patiently. Then Mr. Langford presented the recorded deed transfer, life estate, tax records, Grandma's signed statement, notices sent, evidence of lock changes, refusal of access, photographs of property condition, and evidence that items had been removed. The judge asked Brian, "Do you have any documentation showing ownership interest?" Brian said, "No, but..." The judge held up one hand. "Any lease?" "No." "Any written permission from the legal owner to occupy the property?" "She's my sister." That was not my question. Brian's face flushed. "No." "Any evidence that the deed transfer was invalid?" "She was old." Mr. Langford stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Foster's competency was affirmed by her physician and attorney at the time of transfer. Those records are included." The judge reviewed the file. Brian looked at me. I looked at the table. Not because I was ashamed. Because if I looked at him too long, I might remember him as a child and forget the beer cans and Grandma's hydrangeas. The judge granted possession to me as legal owner and ordered Brian to vacate within 14 days. He also warned him not to remove fixtures, damage property, or dispose of remaining contents. Brian muttered, "This is insane." The judge looked up. "Mr. Foster, this is property law." That sentence became one of my favorites. After court, Brian stormed past me in the hallway. Aunt Carol, who had driven up for support, called after him. "Brian?" He turned. She walked over slowly. "You know your grandmother loved you." His face crumpled. "Could have fooled me." Aunt Carol shook her head. "No, you fooled yourself. Love was never the same as the deed." He left without answering. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever had someone claim love as proof while ignoring every document, every payment, and every responsibility, you know exactly what that courtroom felt like. It was not about wanting to punish him. It was about stopping the lie that needing something means owning it. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me who in your family thought possession meant permission. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. Brian left on the 13th day. Not the 1st, not the 7th, the 13th. Because even leaving had to be a performance. When I arrived with Mr. Langford, Aunt Carol, Ellie, and a locksmith, the house looked wounded. That is the only word. Wounded. The lawn was rutted where trucks had parked. The porch swing was cracked. The front door had scratches near the new lock. Inside, the air smelled like stale beer, dust, and takeout. The living room carpet had a dark stain near the sofa. The roll-top desk was gone. Grandma's sewing chair gone. 2 lamps gone. The pantry door still had the height marks, thank God. The kitchen table was scratched but present. The old cookie tins were in the cabinet. The recipe box had been hidden in the linen closet, maybe by Grandma years earlier, maybe by accident. Ellie found it and cried. I found Grandma's tomato-shaped pincushion in a drawer full of batteries. Aunt Carol stood in the living room and looked around. "I should have come sooner," she said. "We all should have done something sooner," I said. "No," she said. "You did. We watched you do it and called that enough." That honesty felt heavy, but good. The locksmith changed every lock. This time, I authorized it. The cardinal keychain got a new key. I held it in my palm for a long moment. Then I walked through the house room by room, taking photos, making lists, documenting damage, missing items, and what remained. Clipboard energy. Yes. Clipboard energy saves houses. Brian had left a note on the kitchen counter. "You got what you wanted." I stood there reading it. Aunt Carol came beside me. "Did you?" I looked around Grandma's kitchen, the scratched table, the missing curtains, the empty space where the desk had been, the pencil marks on the pantry door, the faint smell of her cinnamon still somehow living in the cabinets. "No," I said. "I got what she asked me to protect." That was not the same thing. The weeks that followed were exhausting. Insurance claim for property damage. Police report for missing items, though proving theft of family contents was complicated. A demand letter for the roll-top desk and other removed property. Cleaning, repairs, sorting, donating, crying at strange objects. I found birthday candles from 1998, Dad's old baseball glove, a casserole dish labeled with masking tape from a church supper, 3 jars of buttons, 27 twist ties, and 1 envelope containing every school photo I had ever given Grandma. In the back of her dresser drawer, I found another note. Not legal, just Grandma. "Diane, if you find this, stop working for 10 minutes and make tea. You always think grief is a task list. Sit down, love G." So I did. I sat at her kitchen table, made tea in her chipped blue mug, and cried until the room blurred. Then I got back to work. Brian did not speak to me for months. He moved in with a friend first, then into a small apartment. I heard through family that he was angry, then depressed, then working again part-time. Aunt Carol said he asked once whether I had sold the house yet. I had not. I did not know what I wanted to do. Part of me wanted to keep it forever. frozen in lemon oil and memory. Part of me wanted to sell it immediately because every room held both Grandma and the damage Brian had caused. Part of me wanted to rent it to a nice family. Part of me wanted to burn sage, repaint everything, and sleep there just to prove the locks worked. Mr. Langford reminded me that ownership was not the same as urgency. "You can decide after the immediate repairs," he said. So I repaired. I fixed the porch swing. I replaced the curtains. I hired someone to restore the pantry door markings behind a clear protective panel. I tracked down the roll-top desk. That part felt like a small miracle. Mrs. Alvarez remembered the trailer. Her grandson found a listing online. The man who bought it had no idea it was disputed family property. He had paid Brian $300. The desk was worth far more emotionally than financially. I bought it back for $350 and did not argue because I wanted it home more than I wanted to be right for 15 minutes. When the desk returned, I placed Grandpa's old photo on top. Then I texted Brian one picture, no caption. He did not reply. 3 days later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I knew his handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check for $350 and one sentence on notebook paper. I shouldn't have sold the desk. I stared at it for a long time. It was not enough, but it was something. I deposited the check. Then I placed the note in the blue folder. The family reckoning happened at Christmas. Grandma had always hosted Christmas Eve. After she died, no one knew what to do. Aunt Carol suggested gathering at the house one last time before I decided its future. I hesitated, then agreed under strict conditions. No arguing, no ownership talk, no Brian staying overnight, and everyone helps clean. Brian came. He arrived with a grocery store pie and the posture of a man expecting attack. His hair was shorter, his beard trimmed, his coat worn at the cuffs. He looked smaller in Grandma's doorway than he had when he refused me entry months before. I opened the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Can I come in?" The question mattered. "Yes," I said. He stepped inside, not past me like he owned it. Inside because I allowed it. He looked at the restored living room, the curtains, the cleaned carpet, the roll-top desk back in place. His eyes stopped on the pantry door markings. "You kept them?" "Of course." He swallowed. "I thought you'd sell." "I haven't decided." He nodded. Family arrived in layers. Aunt Carol, Ellie, Mom, cousins, a few neighbors, Mrs. Alvarez with cookies. The house filled with voices again, but differently. Everyone seemed to know we were guests now, not in a cold way, in a respectful one. After dinner, Aunt Carol asked if I would say something. I had not planned to, but Grandma's house had a way of making plans irrelevant. I stood by the kitchen table. "I want to say this once," I began. "Grandma chose what happened with this house. She did it legally, clearly, and privately because she knew public discussion would become pressure. I did not ask her for it. I did not steal it. I did pay taxes, insurance, repairs, and expenses for years because I loved her and because the house needed care." Brian looked down. I continued. "This house is not proof that Grandma loved one person more than another. It is proof that she understood responsibility. She loved Brian. She loved me. She loved Aunt Carol, Ellie, and all of us. But she knew love alone does not maintain a roof." No one moved. Brian's face tightened, but he stayed quiet. "I don't know yet what I'll do with the house, but while I decide, I expect everyone to treat it as Grandma treated it. A place to be welcomed, not taken." Mrs. Alvarez whispered, "Amen." That helped. Then Brian stood. My stomach tightened. He did not look at me at first. He looked at the floor. "I told people Diane stole the house," he said. "The room went still. She didn't." Aunt Carol put one hand over her mouth. Brian continued, "I was angry. I thought because Grandma let me stay sometimes and because she loved me, it meant she wanted me to have it. Maybe I wanted that so badly, I made it true in my head." He looked at me then. "I changed the locks because I knew if Diane came in with paperwork, I'd lose the story." That sentence was more honest than I expected from him. He swallowed. "I sold things I shouldn't have, I damaged things I had no right to touch. I'm sorry." I waited. So did everyone. He added, "Specifically, I'm sorry for locking you out of a house you legally owned and Grandma trusted you to protect. I'm sorry for saying you manipulated her. I'm sorry for selling Grandpa's desk. I'm sorry for making grief harder." Specific. Finally. I felt tears rise, but I kept my voice steady. "Thank you." He nodded. "I don't expect you to forgive me tonight." "Good," I said. A few people laughed softly because Grandma would have. Brian almost smiled. That night, after everyone helped clean, after Mrs. Alvarez took leftover ham, after Aunt Carol hugged me too long, Brian lingered near the porch. I walked out with him. The maple tree was bare now, black branches against a cold sky. He said, "Do you hate me?" I looked at him. "No." "You should." "Maybe." He smiled sadly. "I'm trying to get better." "At what?" "Not needing rescue and calling it love." That one hurt in a useful way. "I hope you do." He nodded. "Me too." After he left, I sat on the porch swing. The repaired chain creaked softly. I held the cardinal keychain in my hand and thought about Grandma, Dad, all the Christmases, all the unpaid bills, all the promises, all the ways family can confuse affection with entitlement until someone records a deed. In the spring, I made my decision. I kept the house, not as a shrine, as a living place. I sold my townhouse and moved into Grandma's house in May. Some people thought that meant Brian had been right, that I wanted it all along. They were wrong. Wanting a home after protecting it is not the same as taking it because you need somewhere to land. I renovated slowly, not to erase her, to continue. I painted the kitchen a soft cream, repaired the porch, planted tomatoes in the backyard, turned the front bedroom into a sewing room even though I barely sew, because Ellie visits now and she does. Restored the roll-top desk and placed Grandma's recipe box on top. Put Grandpa's photo beside it. Kept the pantry door markings. Hung a framed copy of Grandma's note in my office. A house is not a prize for needing rescue. It is a responsibility. Brian comes over sometimes. By invitation. He knocks, always. The first time he did, I almost cried. He helps with yard work now, and accepts payment because we agreed no more vague favors. Sometimes he stays for dinner. Sometimes he looks around with grief in his eyes. Sometimes I catch him touching the back of the roll-top desk, like he is apologizing to it. We are not fixed. But we are not locked out of the truth anymore. The property tax notice is framed in my office behind the door. Not because taxes are sentimental, because that envelope marked the day the story changed. For months, Brian claimed Grandma wanted him to have the house. The county said otherwise. The deed said otherwise. The lawyer's file said otherwise. Grandma's own handwriting said otherwise. And when the truth finally arrived in an envelope addressed to me, it reminded me of something every responsible daughter, sister, caregiver, and quiet fixer eventually has to learn. You can love someone without giving them what they will destroy. You can protect family history without surrendering it to the loudest grief. And sometimes the most powerful sentence in a family is not shouted across a porch. It is printed under owner name. My brother moved into Grandma's house and changed the locks. The property tax notice came to me. And when he finally stood in court, in front of a judge who cared more about recorded deeds than emotional speeches, he learned what Grandma had known all along. A home is not inherited by claiming it. It is entrusted to the person who has already been taking care of it. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know some of you have watched relatives grab houses, jewelry, accounts, furniture, or memories before the family even had time to grieve. If Diane's story reached you, I hope you remember that paperwork matters, quiet responsibility matters, and the person who screams, "Grandma wanted me to have it," should still be able to show the deed. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the documents that finally unlock the truth. So tell me, if your brother moved into your grandmother's house, changed the locks, and claimed she wanted him to have it, would you argue at the door? Or would you bring the deed, the tax notice, and the lawyer's file?